There are some mistakes in life that happen in a single moment. One decision, one text, one kiss, one lie. But the mistake that destroyed my family didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, quietly, the way a crack forms in a wall before anyone notices the house is falling apart. And by the time I realized what was happening, it was already too late. My name is Maya. I'm 31 years old. And 3 years ago, I fell in love with my younger sister's boyfriend. Even now, saying those words out loud makes me sick. Because if you had asked me before all this happened what kind of person I was, I would have told you I was loyal, protective, the kind of sister who would do anything for her family, especially for Emma. Emma wasn't just my younger sister. She was my best friend. Growing up, we were inseparable. We shared a bedroom until I left for college. Shared secrets. Shared clothes. Shared dreams. Whenever something good happened in my life, she was the first person I called. Whenever something bad happened, she was the first person who showed up. People used to joke that we were more like twins than sisters. And honestly, they weren't wrong. So if someone had told me that one day I would become the reason Emma stopped speaking to me, I would have laughed in their face. Because I loved my sister more than anyone in the world. Or at least I thought I did. Before we go any further, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you, and while you are at it, could you do us a favor and hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos? The story really begins 5 years before everything fell apart. The day Emma met Daniel. I remember it perfectly because she burst into my apartment without knocking. Something she always did. "Maya," she screamed. I nearly dropped my coffee. "What is wrong with you?" She was grinning so hard her cheeks looked painful. "I met someone." I rolled my eyes. "Oh no." "Oh yes." She collapsed onto my couch. And for the next hour, she talked about a guy named Daniel. A guy she'd met at a friend's birthday party. A guy who made her laugh. A guy who apparently had the most beautiful smile she'd ever seen. At the time I barely listened. Emma had always been dramatic when she liked someone. Every new crush was supposedly the love of her life. But this time felt different. No, because 3 months later, she was still talking about him. 6 months later, they were still together. 1 year later, he was at every family gathering. And somehow, without any of us noticing, Daniel became part of the family. My parents loved him. My cousins loved him. Even my grandmother adored him. And honestly, so did I. Not in that way. Not then. Back then, Daniel was just Daniel. The guy who helped my dad fix things around the house. The guy who remembered everyone's birthdays. The guy who somehow managed to stay calm when the rest of us were arguing over holiday plans. He was kind, reliable, funny. The kind of man who made people feel comfortable. The kind of man every parent hopes their daughter ends up with. For 5 years, that was all he was. My sister's boyfriend. Nothing more. Nothing less. Then everything changed. Not because of some dramatic moment. Not because he suddenly confessed his love for me. Not because we kissed. Not because we crossed a line. It started with grief. My mother suffered a stroke. Thankfully, she survived. But for months afterward, our family was thrown into chaos. Hospital visits. Medical appointments. Financial stress. Sleepless nights. Everyone was struggling. Especially Emma. She practically moved into my parents' house to help take care of Mom. Daniel was there constantly too. Driving people to appointments. Picking up groceries. Helping with paperwork. Doing whatever needed to be done. First, I barely noticed. I was too focused on my mother's recovery. But as the months passed, something began to stand out. Whenever things got overwhelming, Daniel was there. Whenever I felt exhausted, Daniel was there. Whenever my father broke down crying in private, Daniel was there. Steady, reliable, unshakable. And for the first time I started seeing him differently. Not as Emma's boyfriend. Not as part of the family. But as a person. A man. The realization terrified me. So I ignored it. Or at least I tried to. I told myself I was stressed. Emotionally exhausted. Confused. I convinced myself the feelings would disappear. Except they didn't. Instead they got worse. Because once you notice something, you can't unnotice it. I started looking forward to family gatherings. Looking forward to conversations with him. Looking forward to hearing him laugh. Every time I caught myself doing it, guilt punched me in the stomach. This was Emma's boyfriend. Emma. My sister. My best friend. The person who trusted me more than anyone else. What kind of person develops feelings for her sister's boyfriend? Terrible one. That's what I told myself. And maybe I was right. So I did what any decent person would do. I created distance. I stopped attending certain family dinners, stopped replying to group chats, stopped showing up whenever I knew Daniel would be there. I thought space would solve everything. Instead, it created a different problem. Because Emma noticed. And Emma had always known me better than anyone. One evening she called me. "You've been avoiding us." I laughed nervously. "No, I haven't." "You're lying." My stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" "I know you." Her voice softened. "What's wrong, Maya?" For a moment I almost told her. Not the feelings. Never that. But the guilt. The confusion. The fear. Instead I lied. "I'm just tired." There was a long pause. Then she sighed. "Okay." But I could tell she didn't believe me. And somehow, that made me feel even worse. Because while I was drowning in guilt, Emma was worried about me. The very person I was betraying without her even knowing it. Looking back now, that was the moment I should have gotten help. The moment I should have left. Taken a job in another city. Created real distance. Done something. Anything. Instead I stayed. And staying turned out to be the worst decision of my life. Because only a few weeks later, Daniel called me directly. For the first time ever. And what he said during that phone call would change everything. I stared at my phone for several seconds before answering. Daniel had never called me directly before. Not once. If he needed something, he usually texted the family group chat. Or asked Emma to reach out. So seeing his name appear on my screen immediately made my stomach tighten. For a second I considered letting it ring. But then I thought maybe something had happened to my mother. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe someone was hurt. So I answered. "Hello. Maya." His voice sounded exhausted. More exhausted than I had ever heard him. "Yeah. Is everything okay?" There was a pause. A long pause. Then he exhaled heavily. "Honestly? No." Something about the way he said it made me sit upright. "What happened?" Another silence. I just needed someone to talk to. Immediately, alarm bells started ringing in my head. Not because there was anything inappropriate about the conversation, but because I knew this was dangerous. Not for him. For me. Still, I couldn't exactly hang up. So I listened. For the next 20 minutes, Daniel talked. Mostly about stress. Work problems. Financial pressure. His father's declining health. The responsibilities piling up around him. Nothing romantic. Nothing personal. Nothing that should have worried me. And yet, when the call ended, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Because for the first time, I'd seen a side of Daniel I'd never seen before. The vulnerable side. The exhausted side. The side that wasn't always strong. The side that wasn't always holding everyone else together. And somehow that made everything worse. Over the next few weeks, those conversations continued. Not every day. Not even every week. But occasionally. A quick call. A short conversation. Sometimes about family. Sometimes about work. Sometimes about nothing important at all. Every single time I told myself it was harmless. Because technically, it was. We weren't flirting. We weren't hiding anything. We weren't crossing any boundaries. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Then one evening everything shifted. It was Emma's birthday. The entire family had gathered at my parents' house. Everyone was laughing, eating, taking pictures, trying to enjoy themselves. But almost immediately, I noticed something felt off. Emma and Daniel barely spoke to each other. First I assumed I was imagining it. Couples have bad days. It happens. But as the night continued, it became impossible to ignore. Whenever Emma spoke, Daniel seemed distracted. Whenever Daniel spoke, Emma looked irritated. And when they thought nobody was watching, they avoided eye contact entirely. By the end of the evening, the tension between them felt almost visible. Then came the argument. Not a dramatic screaming match. Not in front of everyone. Just a quiet disagreement in the kitchen. But I happened to overhear part of it while grabbing a drink. "You promised," Emma whispered sharply. "I know. You always say that." "I'm trying." "No, Daniel. You're not." The silence that followed felt heavy. Painful. Then I heard footsteps. So I quickly left before either of them noticed me. The entire drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because I was happy they were having problems. I wasn't. I genuinely wasn't. But for the first time I realized something. Their relationship wasn't perfect. For years, I'd viewed them as this unbreakable couple. The relationship everyone envied. The relationship destined to end in marriage. But suddenly cracks were appearing. And that realization scared me. Because a tiny part of me, the selfish part, felt hopeful. The moment I recognized that feeling, I hated myself. Absolutely hated myself. I spent the next few days avoiding everyone. Again. Unfortunately, that plan didn't last long. 3 nights later, Emma showed up at my apartment. Unannounced. The way she always did. Only this time she wasn't smiling. The moment I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. Her eyes were red. Her makeup was smeared. And she looked exhausted. Without saying a word, she walked inside. Then collapsed onto my couch. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked the question, "What happened?" Emma laughed bitterly. The kind of laugh people make when they're trying not to cry. "Daniel and I had a fight." My heart sank. "What about?" She looked away. "Everything." I sat beside her quietly, waiting. Eventually, she continued. "We've been arguing for months." Months. The word hit me harder than it should have. Months? Not days. Not weeks. Months. How had nobody noticed? Emma rubbed her eyes. "I don't even know what's happening anymore." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then finally whispered the words that would stay with me forever. "It feels like we're becoming strangers." My chest tightened, because despite everything I felt, despite every guilty thought I'd had, seeing my sister in pain was unbearable. I wanted to fix it. I wanted her to be happy. I wanted things to go back to normal. And yet, a tiny voice inside my head kept asking a question I desperately didn't want to hear. What if they don't? Emma spent hours talking that night. About missed dates, growing distance, constant arguments, miscommunication, resentment. By the time she left, it was nearly 2 in the morning, and I felt emotionally drained, because now I knew something I wished I didn't. Their relationship wasn't just struggling, it was falling apart. Over the next month, things got worse. Noticeably worse. Family gatherings became awkward. Conversations became forced. The tension between them became impossible to ignore. Then one afternoon, Daniel called again. I almost didn't answer, but I did. And what he told me made my blood run cold. "Emma wants a break." The words hit me like a punch. A break. Yeah. He laughed softly, except there was no humor in it. "I think we're reaching the end." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I managed to say, "I'm sorry." "So am I." His voice cracked. Just slightly, but enough for me to hear it. Enough for me to realize how much pain he was in. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. Something dangerous. Because for the first time, my concern for Daniel wasn't just sympathy. And deep down, I knew it. I knew exactly what was happening. I just wasn't ready to admit it. But the universe has a cruel way of forcing the truth into the light. Because only 2 weeks later, Emma discovered something. Something completely innocent. Something that meant absolutely nothing. And yet it would trigger the chain reaction that destroyed all of us. When she called me that night, she was screaming so hard I could barely understand her. And the first words she shouted were, "How long has this been going on?" Emma's voice was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. For a second, I didn't even understand what she was talking about. "What? Don't play dumb with me, Maya." My stomach dropped. I stood up so quickly I nearly knocked over the glass of water sitting beside me. "Emma, what are you talking about?" She laughed. A sharp, bitter laugh that barely sounded like her. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." "No, I don't." "Then explain the messages." Messages. The word hit me like a train. Immediately, my mind went to every conversation I'd had with Daniel over the past few months. Every phone call. Every text. Every interaction. None of them had been romantic. None of them had crossed any obvious boundaries. But suddenly I realized something terrifying. They didn't need to be romantic to look bad. Especially if someone was already suspicious. "Emma," I said carefully. "What messages?" For several seconds she didn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaking. "I borrowed Daniel's phone." My heart pounded. "And I saw your conversation." I closed my eyes. Not because I was guilty. Not exactly. But because I knew how this looked. There were months of conversations. Months of check-ins. Months of support. Months of emotional intimacy. The kind that develops slowly. Quietly. Without anyone noticing. Including the people involved. "Emma, nothing happened." "Oh, really?" "Yes." "Then why is my boyfriend talking to you about problems he doesn't talk to me about?" I froze. Because I didn't have an answer. Not a good one. Not one she'd believe. And honestly, not one I fully understood myself. Her breathing became heavier. Faster. Angrier. "Do you know what hurts the most?" I swallowed hard. "What?" "I trusted you." The words hit harder than anything else she'd said. Not because they were unfair. but because they were true. Emma had trusted me. Completely. Unconditionally. And somewhere along the way, I'd become emotionally invested in someone who belonged in her life, not mine. Even if I hadn't meant for it to happen. Even if I'd fought against it. The damage was already done. That night ended badly. Very badly. Emma hung up on me. Ignored every call afterward. Refused every text. And by the next morning, the entire family knew something was wrong. I found out when my mother called. What happened between you and your sister? The exhaustion in her voice nearly broke me. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. I don't know. It wasn't entirely a lie. Because at that point, I genuinely didn't know how things had spiraled so quickly. My mother sighed. Emma is very upset. I know. She thinks something happened between you and Daniel. There it was. The accusation. Spoken aloud. Making it feel suddenly real. Nothing had happened. Not physically. Not romantically. Not officially. But hearing those words made me question everything. Because feelings had happened. And maybe that mattered more. Over the next week, the situation became unbearable. Emma stopped answering my calls. My father became distant. My cousins started acting strange around me. Family group chats went silent whenever I joined. For the first time in my life, I felt like an outsider in my own family. And through all of it, Daniel remained strangely absent. Until one evening, my phone rang. His name appeared on the screen. I stared at it, then declined the call. A few seconds later, a text arrived. Please let me explain. I didn't respond. Another message appeared. Emma thinks something happened between us. Still, I didn't answer. Then came a third text. I'm ending things with her. The world seemed to stop. I read the message again. And again. And again. I'm ending things with her. Not because of me. Not because of the accusations. But because their relationship had apparently been falling apart for much longer than anyone realized. Still, the timing couldn't have been worse. To everyone else, it would look exactly like what Emma feared. And deep down I knew it. A week later, Daniel and Emma officially broke up. 5 years. Gone. Just like that. The breakup shattered her. Completely. I watched from a distance as my sister transformed into someone I barely recognized. She stopped going out. Stopped answering friends. Stopped posting online. Stopped smiling. And every time I saw her pain, the guilt nearly consumed me. Because even if I hadn't caused the breakup, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd somehow contributed to it. Then came the family barbecue. The day everything exploded. I almost didn't go. In hindsight, I wish I hadn't. The moment I arrived, I could feel the tension. Conversations stopped. People exchanged looks. Whispers followed me across the backyard. It felt like everyone had already chosen sides. And I wasn't on the winning side. For nearly an hour, I kept my distance. Avoiding conflict. Avoiding attention. Avoiding Emma. Then I saw him. Daniel. Standing near the fence. Looking just as miserable as everyone else. For several minutes, neither of us moved. Then he slowly walked toward me. Every instinct told me to leave. But before I could, he spoke. I'm sorry. I looked away. For what? For all of this. The sadness in his voice sounded genuine. Painfully genuine. I never wanted this. Neither did I. Silence. Then another silence. The kind that stretches too long. The kind that says things words don't. And that was the exact moment Emma saw us. Her face changed instantly. Shock. Hurt. Disbelief. Then rage. Pure rage. Before either of us could react, she stormed across the yard. Everyone turned. Every conversation stopped. Every eye followed her. And then she shouted the words that changed everything. Just tell the truth. The backyard fell silent. Completely silent. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She pointed directly at us. At me. At Daniel. At the two people she believed had betrayed her. Tell them what you've done. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. My mother looked confused. My father looked horrified. And suddenly, every member of my family was staring at me. Waiting. Judging. Wondering. The worst part? I realized in that moment that I no longer knew what the truth was. Because no, we hadn't had an affair. No, we hadn't kissed. No, we hadn't secretly dated. But had I fallen in love with him? The answer was yes. And for the first time, I could no longer pretend otherwise. What happened next would destroy any chance of keeping this family together. Because before I could say a single word, Daniel stepped forward, looked directly at Emma, then at everyone else, and confessed something nobody saw coming. The entire backyard was silent. Not the normal kind of silence. The uncomfortable kind. The kind where you can almost hear people's hearts beating. Daniel stood in the center of the crowd. My sister was crying. My parents looked frozen. And every single person was waiting for him to speak. For a moment it seemed like he might back down. Like he might keep his mouth shut. Instead he took a deep breath. Then he said, "Maya never did anything wrong." The words echoed across the yard. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Emma stared at him in disbelief. "What?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Maya never betrayed you." The tension somehow became even worse, because nobody knew what to do with that statement. Especially Emma. Her face twisted with anger. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm telling the truth." "The truth," she snapped. "You spent months talking to my sister behind my back." "I know. You shared things with her you wouldn't share with me." "I know. You made me feel crazy." His shoulders sagged. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked completely defeated. Then he said something that changed the entire atmosphere. "Emma, our relationship was already ending." The words hit her like a slap. I saw it happen. The shock. The hurt. The disbelief. Everything. "No." His eyes filled with regret. "Yes. No. We both knew it." Emma shook her head violently. "No, we didn't." But even as she said it, something in her expression shifted. Because deep down, she knew. Everyone did. The arguments. The distance. The resentment. The emotional exhaustion. They had been struggling for a long time. The family just hadn't wanted to admit it. Daniel rubbed his face. "I should have ended things months ago." The backyard remained silent. Then my father finally spoke. "What exactly are you saying?" Daniel looked at him carefully. "I'm saying Maya didn't break us." A strange expression crossed my father's face. Relief. Confusion. Concern. All at once. Then Daniel continued. "We broke ourselves." For a second it seemed like things might calm down. Like maybe everyone would finally understand. Then Daniel made a mistake. Terrible mistake. The kind of mistake that changes everything. He looked directly at me. And for one brief moment, the entire world disappeared. The crowd. The family. The tension. Everything. It was only a second. Maybe less. But everyone saw it. Including Emma. And the second she noticed it, her expression changed completely. The anger vanished. The shouting vanished. The accusations vanished. And somehow that was even worse. Because what replaced them was certainty. Absolute certainty. She stepped backward slowly. Tears streaming down her face. "Oh my God." Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Emma looked from Daniel to me, then back to Daniel. Oh my God. The realization had finally reached her. Not an affair. Not cheating. Not betrayal in the traditional sense. Something else. Something arguably worse. Feelings. Real feelings. And once she saw them, she couldn't unsee them. Neither could anyone else. The backyard erupted. Questions. Arguments. Confusion. Everyone talking over everyone else. My mother started crying. My aunt began demanding explanations. My cousins exchanged shocked looks. It was chaos. Complete chaos. And right in the middle of it all, Emma walked away. Nobody stopped her. Nobody could. She climbed into her car, started the engine, and drove away. I never imagined that would be the last time I'd see her for nearly a year. The weeks that followed were a nightmare. Emma blocked me everywhere. My number, my social media, my email, everything. It was as though I'd died. Or worse, as though I'd never existed. I wrote letters. She never answered. I sent messages through relatives. Nothing. I apologized. Again. And again. And again. Still nothing. The silence became unbearable. Then something happened that made everything even worse. 3 months after the breakup, Daniel contacted me. First I ignored him. Then I blocked him. Then he found another way to reach me. Eventually curiosity won. So I agreed to meet him. Just once. For closure. At least that's what I told myself. The moment I saw him I knew that was a lie. Because closure wasn't what either of us wanted. We sat across from each other in a quiet coffee shop. And for several minutes neither of us spoke. Finally Daniel broke the silence. "I miss her." I nodded. "So do I." The sadness in his eyes looked genuine. Which somehow made everything worse. Because if he'd been a villain this would have been easier. If he cheated, manipulated, lied, destroyed things intentionally, at least I'd have someone to blame. Instead, we were just two people sitting in the wreckage of something neither of us had planned. Then he asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you hate me? I stared into my coffee, thinking carefully. No. His shoulders relaxed slightly. Then I asked him something I'd been wondering for months. When did it happen? His expression darkened. When did what happen? You know. For a long moment he said nothing. Then finally whispered. I don't know. And somehow, I believed him. Because feelings don't always arrive with an announcement. Sometimes they sneak in quietly. One conversation at a time. One moment at a time. One connection at a time. Until suddenly they're there. And by then, it's too late. That conversation should have been the end. Should have been goodbye. The final chapter. Instead, it became the beginning of something else. Something that would cost me even more than I'd already lost. Because 6 months later, Daniel and I started dating. And when Emma found out, the consequences were worse than anything I could have imagined. Much worse. Because what she did next didn't just ruin my life. It ruined hers too. For a long time I convinced myself that love was supposed to be enough. That if two people genuinely cared about each other, they deserved a chance. No matter how complicated the circumstances, no matter how messy the timing, no matter who got hurt along the way. I believed that. Right up until the day everything finally fell apart. 6 months after that coffee shop meeting, Daniel and I started dating. Carefully, quietly, secretly. Not because we were ashamed of each other, but because we knew exactly what people would think. We knew what it looked like. To everyone else, the story was simple. The older sister stole the younger sister's boyfriend. The end. Nobody wanted to hear about emotional distance, or years of problems, or relationships that had already been dying long before they officially ended. People preferred villains. And in their version of the story, I was the villain. First, we kept our relationship hidden. Only a few close friends knew. For a while it actually felt peaceful. Daniel made me laugh. He understood me. We could talk for hours without running out of things to say. For the first time in years I felt genuinely happy. And that happiness terrified me. Because every moment of joy came attached to guilt. Every date reminded me of Emma. Every laugh reminded me of what I'd lost. Every good memory carried a shadow. Still, I convinced myself things would improve. Time heals everything, right? That's what people always say. I wanted to believe it. Then Emma found out. Not from me. Not from Daniel. From social media. A mutual friend posted a picture. Just one picture. One careless photograph. That was all it took. I found out 3 days later when my mother called. The moment I answered, I knew something was wrong. She was crying. Not quietly. Not trying to hide it. Actually crying. And my mother almost never cried. What happened? I asked. Her voice cracked. Emma knows. My stomach dropped. I already knew exactly what she meant. Still I asked. Knows what? You and Daniel. The room suddenly felt smaller. Hotter. Harder to breathe in. My mother exhaled shakily. She's gone. My heart stopped. What? She packed her things. I stood up immediately. What do you mean she's gone? She quit her job. What? She left. The panic hit me instantly. Where? We don't know. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Then my mother started crying again. And that's when I realized how serious this had become. Emma hadn't just cut me out. She'd disappeared. The following weeks were chaos. Nobody could reach her. Friends hadn't heard from her. Family hadn't heard from her. Even people she spoke to regularly had no idea where she'd gone. My father aged 10 years in a month. My mother barely slept. Every day felt heavier than the one before. And through all of it, I blamed myself. Because whether I'd intended it or not, this chain of events had started with me. Then one morning, nearly 7 weeks after Emma vanished, we received a letter. An actual handwritten letter. Addressed to my parents. My mother called me immediately. I drove over faster than I ever had in my life. The entire family gathered around the kitchen table. Nobody spoke. My father's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. Then he began reading. Dear Mom and Dad. First, I need you to know that I'm safe. The room collectively exhaled. My mother broke down immediately. But my father kept reading. I know you're worried. I know you're hurt. And I know you're probably angry. But I need time. Not because I hate anyone. Not because I want revenge. Because I don't recognize myself anymore. The room remained silent. Painfully silent. For 5 years I built my future around one person. Then I lost him. And somehow I also lost my sister. The person I trusted most. The person I thought would always be in my corner. I don't know how to process that. I don't know how to forgive it. And honestly, I don't know if I ever will. By the time my father finished reading, nobody could speak. Not even me. Especially me. Because for the first time, I truly understood the depth of her pain. Not intellectually. Emotionally. Viscerally. I felt it. And it broke me. Months passed. Then a year. Eventually Emma returned. Not permanently. Just briefly. For my grandmother's funeral. The first time I saw her again, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked older. Not physically. Emotionally. As though life had forced her to carry weight she never asked for. When our eyes met across the church, my chest tightened. I wanted to run to her. Apologize again. Beg for forgiveness. Instead I stayed where I was. Because some wounds can't be healed with words. After the service she approached me. Slowly. Carefully. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she surprised me. How are you? I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was the last question I expected. I'm okay. She nodded. Silence. Then another silence. Finally I whispered. I'm sorry. Her eyes filled with tears. So am I. I looked at her confused. What do you mean? She stared at the floor. Then said something I'll never forget. I spent so long hating you that I forgot how much losing you hurt. The tears came immediately. For both of us. Right there in the church parking lot. Years of pain. Years of anger. Years of grief. Pouring out all at once. We didn't magically fix everything that day. Life doesn't work that way. Trust doesn't magically reappear. Neither does forgiveness. But it was a beginning. And sometimes beginnings are enough. As for Daniel, we didn't last. Not because we stopped caring about each other. But because eventually we realized something painful. Our relationship had been built in the shadow of loss. Too much guilt. Too much history. Too much damage. We carried the weight of everything that happened into every conversation. Every disagreement. Every decision. Eventually it became too much. So we ended things. Peacefully. Respectfully. Sadly. The strange thing is, I don't regret loving him. Feelings aren't choices. What I regret is silence. I regret not creating boundaries sooner. I regret not being honest with myself. I regret believing that avoiding a problem somehow makes it disappear. Because it doesn't. It grows. Quietly. Patiently. Until one day it demands to be seen. People often ask whether love is worth fighting for. After everything that happened, I think they're asking the wrong question. The real question is, what are you willing to lose for it? Because sometimes love doesn't ruin your life. Sometimes the decisions surrounding it do. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that some mistakes don't happen in a single moment. They happen one small choice at a time. Until suddenly you're standing in the ruins of something beautiful, wondering how you got there. And by then, it's already too late. I want to hear from you. Type down to the comments and tell me. As you followed this story, where did your sympathy sit? Was there a moment when it shifted? Was there a moment when you understood Maya even as you judged her? Because I think if we are honest, some of us have felt some version of what she felt. The difference between her story and ours is often just the choices that were made when the feeling arrived. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and conversations like this are why we are here. And if this story reached something in you, if it made you think about someone in your life, or something in yourself, please share it and don't forget to subscribe. Someone in your circle needs to hear it. We will see you in the next one.